There we go. Is it recording? Right now. Didn't say starting to record, did it?
It says it's recording.
Now it's recording. Okay, there. Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Lisa Nichols. I'm a transformation coach for women in business. And what does that mean? It's basically working with women who own their own businesses, to help them basically get over themselves so that they can create the business and the life that they want to live. So last month, if you didn't make last month's webinar, I have a link to it. And so it's kind of like part one of today's masterclass. So I'm going to chat. So that if you weren't here, or you haven't had a chance to watch it, you can. Okay. The internet's a little bit slow, seemingly today. So I'm sorry if I freeze up or anything like that. But so last month we talked about what procrastination is and the reasons behind it, and how to work on those underlying reasons that keep you stuck, feeling like you're stuck being a procrastinator, as if you were born that way, which is procrastination is a coping mechanism that we created or developed as children when something would happen that we didn't know how to deal with. So today we're going to go through some exercises that can help with procrastination in the moment, but also long-term. And so the agenda is, I'll introduce myself, which I kind of already did. We'll dive deeper into these exercises. We'll actually do them. And one of those exercises is tapping. And then I will also let you all know about an offer at the end if you wanted to take advantage of it. So procrastination is when you unnecessarily delay taking action or making a decision. And a lot of times it can be chronic. It can be something that can really impact our lives. Everything from impacting our relationships to the amount of money we earn, to how nice our environment is around us, to how much we enjoy our life. Procrastination can really be a huge impact on our lives, especially when it's chronic. And about a quarter of the population actually identify themselves as procrastinators. And we all procrastinate in sometimes. It's when it's chronic. It's when sometimes you even procrastinate when it's against your own best interests, that it becomes a real problem. Like I've identified for me, like 16 different things, and I have a new program that I'm working on that will work with these 16 different reasons. And one of the reasons why is rebellion. We actually will, even though we're adults, we may even be grandparents, and sometimes we're still rebelling against things that happened to us in our childhood and our teenage years. If we had very controlling parents, we might decide that we're going to rebel against things that try to force us to do what they want us to do, and everything will seem like we're being forced to do what other people want us to do. We'll see that in the world. So even if it's just your significant other saying, hey, could you unload the dishwasher? That you're going to have this little rebellion come up that says, you can't make me. And so that's one of the things. Why did I start going down rebellion? But anyway, because there's lots of reasons why we procrastinate. And so when it's that cycle though. So, that's why now I remember, because it can really impact our lives and against our own best interest, because then you start a fight with your significant other over something stupid like unloading the dishwasher. And it can really even, if you procrastinate at work in terms of if you're not comfortable doing something, and so you delay, and then you don't meet your deadline, or you don't you keep telling yourself you're going to do something for your business, like email people, and you continue not doing it, it really causes huge impacts. So procrastination is often blamed on like bad time management or poor organizational skills, or not having the right checklist, or being distracted. And there's some of that, but more than anything, it stems from these underlying beliefs and thought patterns that we have, that we created throughout our childhood, like I said, with just trying to cope with life and what was going on around us. So so that's kind of a recap of what procrastination is. And then let me just really quick introduce myself. So like I said, what I do is I work with business owners who want to move through the obstacles that are kind of stopping them in their tracks. And that can include procrastination. It can include perfectionism. It can include fear of being seen, imposter syndrome, and just, I also, because I have a background in corporate life and doing project management and business analysis, I can also help them figure out how to go from where they are to where they want to be. And along those lines, like, what is stopping them, what in their mindset, what in their beliefs and thought patterns and habits and emotional triggers are keeping them from being able to do what they know they need to do. And here's an example. I mean, this is a personal example, but we've thrown a lot of parties over the years here. And for the longest time, I would procrastinate almost until like 3 hours before the party to start basically getting ready, to finish cleaning the house, to start getting the food together, to get my makeup on, to get my hair done, and all of that. And so when my guests would start to arrive, I would not be ready to greet them. The food wouldn't be out. I'd still be rushing around. I'd be frazzled. And I never really enjoyed myself because I always felt behind, even the rest of the night, I felt behind the 8 ball. And so if we do that in our businesses and in the rest of our life, then that just, it's such a great example. It makes you not enjoy your life.
There she is.
All right, I'm back. Yay. Where did I end?
Let's see, what were you talking about? Anybody remember exactly? MJ, you're on mute.
Underlying causes of procrastination, and was going to then move on, I think.
Underlying causes, yeah. And you were about to introduce yourself more fully, I think.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Let me start there. So I got through the whole procrastination, blamed on bad time management, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Hi, Valentina, and welcome. So what I do, like I said, I'll just reintroduce myself, is I help women business owners kind of get over those, get over themselves, basically, the underlying beliefs, the thought patterns, the emotional triggers, there was something else that I said earlier, and now I can't remember, that can prevent them from doing what they know they need to do to make their business successful, to create the business that they really want. Yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry, Valentina. I know Calendly has been just messing me up so much with this program, and I'm really sorry. But thank you for continuing to try and finally get to the right one. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Okay, so I was going to give this really quick example of, it's a personal example, but with I was a terrible procrastinator for years and years and years and years. And like, if we threw a party, I would wait till like maybe 3 hours before the party was supposed to start to actually finally get ready, cleaning the house, putting the food out, putting my makeup on, putting my clothes on. And when my guests would start to arrive, I'd never be ready. I'd be frazzled. I couldn't even greet them at the door. I'd tell my kids to go open the door. I'd still be putting food out. I just, I wouldn't feel good. I wouldn't think I looked good. And I never really enjoyed the nights. And because of the procrastination and waiting until the last minute. And so now that I've identified any number of things that cause me to procrastinate, main one being fear of judgment, and which is Valentina, is that another part of you? Another instance of you? Let's do that. Okay. So, sorry. Oh, there we go. And so if we do this in our business, if we wait to the last minute to do everything, we're never going to feel like we are prepared, like we're ready, like we know what we're doing. We'll make more mistakes. It's easier to downplay ourselves because we don't feel prepared. It can just really cause huge issues. So that's what I work with, business owners in terms of procrastination, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, whatever that is that can stop people from moving forward in their business. Okay. So one thing I wanted to talk about really quick is kind of how these beliefs that we have about ourselves get formed. And there's this really famous coaching model I popularized by created by Brooke Shapiro. It's the CTFAR. So what happens is we have a circumstance. Let's take one from our business. Like, let's say that we need to call someone, like a potential client. That's a circumstance. It actually has no meaning. There's no emotion around it. It's just you need to pick up the phone, dial the number, and talk to the person. But then we have a thought. And the thought could be, they're going to get annoyed with me for calling them. They're not going to want to work with me. They're not going to think I'm good enough. They're not going to want to pay me that much money. You have some thought about it that gives the circumstance a meaning. And then based on the thought, you have a feeling gets generated. And that feeling can be fear, could be self-doubt, it can be worry, it can be like fear of rejection. That's a fear. I know I said fear earlier, but a specific one could be fear of rejection. And then, believe it or not, our actions don't come from our thoughts. Our actions come from our feelings. So when we have those feelings of anxiety, fear, self-doubt, etc., then we take an action. And so when we think to ourselves, oh, I need to call this person, and you feel all these feelings come up, that's when your brain will go, oh, maybe let's do something else. Maybe let's do this later. Oh, you don't have time to call them right now. Oh, you'll need more time than you have. So why don't you do it tomorrow? Why don't you do it later? Or, you'll just find something. Like, I know for a lot of people, the way that they avoid doing what they don't want to do is they clean, because you feel productive and you're like, this needs to be done anyway. And look at me, I've got it, my toilet's clean, my kitchen's clean. It feels good. It feels way better than picking up the phone and calling this person and having an unknown outcome from this call. And so the results that you get are all based on your actions. So when you don't pick up the call, sure, you don't get rejected, but you also don't get the potential yes. And you might have a clean kitchen, but you haven't moved your business forward. So given this model, if you think about it, what would happen if you changed the thought at that moment when you had that thought? So let's say the question is, again, the circumstance is, I need to call this person of this potential lead. So if your thought was not, oh my gosh, they might reject me. If your thought is, I can just use this as practice. I don't need any particular outcome from this call other than to practice my talking to somebody who's a potential client. What if you thought to yourself, I'm just going to talk to this person as if she's my best friend? What if your thought is, I know what I've done this 100 times. I can do it again. By being able to shift your thought at that moment and kind of like you cut the resulting feelings at its knees. You shift out of that, the feelings that come up from the thoughts, and you become way more aware too of the fact that you're trying to procrastinate. And so you can actually coach yourself within this type of thing. Like you can literally get a piece of paper, write down see or circumstance, and write down what that circumstance is. I need to call this person. And then you can write down your thoughts. What are all your thoughts about this circumstance? I'm afraid they're going to tell me no. I know they're going to tell me they can't afford it, and I don't know how to help them understand the value of working with me. You can just put down all your thoughts. And then you can put down thoughts that you actually want to have. You can actually decide what your thoughts are. Sometimes, most of the time, we forget that we can decide what thoughts we want to have. We think our thoughts are they're dictating us rather than us having thoughts. It's like our thoughts are having us, but thoughts are just thoughts, and they can be very habitual. So I know mine for a long time was, I'm so stupid. Every time something wouldn't work out for me, the thought in my head was, I'm so stupid. And so over the years, as I've done my healing and done my work, I don't say that very often. It's very rare. Once in a while I'll come up, but because I've done the work, I'm able to look at that thought and think, I don't like that thought. It makes me feel yucky. I don't want to have that thought anymore. And I can literally just say, change the thought in my head now. And so as you practice this, as you think about changing the thoughts that create the feelings that result in your actions that give you your results, it can actually become a habitual in the moment that you do it. So you could ask yourself, is there a better way to do this? Is there maybe you can bribe yourself. Yeah, it's uncomfortable calling people, but after I do this, I'll go have a cup of tea. Just whatever you need to kind of regulate your nervous system and shift the thoughts and get your feelings into a different state so that you can take that action. So that's why don't we go ahead and do this together? So if you can bring up to mind something that you're procrastinating on right now, you can close your eyes if you want and just ask yourself, okay, what's something I need to do I'm procrastinating on? And then ask, what are my thoughts? Why am I not wanting to do this? Let the feelings that you have around it come up, around those thoughts. Go ahead and let them feel them. Don't try to suppress or deny them, but really feel them. If you have writing, you can utensil or a computer, you can write them down if that would be helpful. Now, what's a different thought that you could have about this thing that you need to do? What is actually more true? So here's some ideas. I've done hard things before. I bet it's not nearly as hard as it seems like it will be. I don't want to continue worrying about this thing anymore, and I'm just going to get it done and off my list. Whatever thought will shift you. Now that you've got a different thought, what's the next step? What's the action you can take? I should have said it earlier, but you can even kind of amp this exercise up a little bit by putting your hand on your heart and doing some deep breathing. So does anyone want to share what came up for them? Okay, if not. Okay, so I want to go to another exercise. And something that can very much help with procrastination is mindfulness. A lot of our procrastination comes from fear of what's going to happen in the future. It does stem from, the origination of it is based on what's happened in our past. And the beliefs that we generated in the past. But right now, in this moment, when we're procrastinating, when our brain's saying, let's do this later, it's because we're thinking in the future. So mindfulness is just being very, very present in the moment, in your body, and aware of what's going on around you, of your environment, of your circumstances, of how you're feeling. So when you're thinking that whatever this thing is that you don't want to do, you're not going to enjoy it, maybe you won't do a good job, others won't like it, and you'll get criticized, all of that, that's all future thinking. So being present and starting to feel really present in your body is a way to shift out of that thinking. So right now, let's do this. Let's get really mindful. So kind of take a deep breath, like feel your butt in your chair, feel your feet on the floor. Look around you and really actually notice what's around you, the color of the walls, the paintings on the walls, the desk in front of you, whatever it is, like take a moment to be very present. Okay, Amy. Oh, Amy had to leave. So be very present and just look around you. Notice whatever noises are going on. Like I hear the wind outside my window. I'm present to a sting on my finger that I think I had a cut from the glass that got broken. Like move your hand and watch your hand move. Like really be present to the way that it moves, the way that it looks. Be present to how your body feels. Like I just blinked. I'm breathing. My back feels tight. And think to yourself while you're being present, while you're being mindful, just think to yourself, I am here. It is this moment in time. So you can do this when you're faced with something you don't want to do. You can bring yourself into the present moment, and you can talk to yourself as you do it. So, for example, I need to send this email to someone, and here I am sitting in front of my computer. I'm going to open up an email, a new email. I'm going to click on new. Gosh, what is that email address? I'm going to enter that email address. Now I'm going to write the subject line. And it sounds kind of silly, but you can just walk yourself through this process. I'm going to write hi in their name. And really what it's doing is it's keeping you out of your head, and the fact that it has a degree in MSU or make shit up, you're just taking the action. And the action in and of itself has no meaning. It only has meaning when you give it meaning through your thoughts. So you can either question the thoughts, or you can just really bring yourself into the moment and be present and not worry about what's going to happen after you take this action. So does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions? Okay. So the last two exercises are things you can do in the moment. The last one I want to do is EFT tapping, and which is helpful for kind of longer term results, because it really helps with the ingrained beliefs that can have these long-term impacts. And it just helps to cut it off at the source, basically. So because once you change your beliefs, they can no longer kind of rear up when you're in that moment of needing to do something that makes you uncomfortable or anxious. Like for me, with I had this fear of judgment to the point of social anxiety, and it was really crippling. So I hated being center of attention. I hated having to talk to authority. I hated when it was my turn to speak in a group. I would fumble with my words. I would dissociate. I would literally leave my body rather than stay in that very uncomfortable situation. It was very, very hard to put myself out there because of the risk of being judged. So but now that I've shifted, I've healed that social anxiety. It's so much easier. Like I can sit here to talk to you guys today, and maybe I have a little bit of thought in the back, like, oh, I hope they like it. I hope they get a lot out of it, but it doesn't stop me from doing it. So, what we're going to talk about in terms of the tapping, though, is a chakra, and this is our solar plexus chakra. So it is the one right between the heart and the tummy, right at the base of your rib. And it's also called Manipura, which I don't know I had to look that up, but they're different names. So it's located just above the navel. So this chakra is associated with our personal willpower and our sense of identity and being able to take action. So you can imagine if your solar plexus chakra is out of alignment, it can really impact how much action you can take and how much energy and effort you're going to put into getting what you want. When it's out of balance, you don't feel confident of yourself. You have lack of motivation. Let me see. I'm getting down to my notes here. Yes, it makes you not even know what you want. And I know for a fact that was something like whenever I'm asked, hey, what's your goal for 5 years? Or how do you want this to look? Or what do you want? I have the hardest time saying what it is that I actually want. I can tell you sort of what I don't want, but it's really hard to say what I do want. And that's part of this solar plexus chakra. So it's all related. It is related to your motivation and your power and your sense of confidence, also your energy and digestion. So if you have some digestive issues, you might want to look at doing some chakra work on the solar plexus. And especially has to do with decision making. And throughout my whole life, I always blamed the fact that I had a hard time making decisions because I'm a Libra. And but there's much more to it, much more to that, including that fear of judgment and having actually my whole 3 lower chakras completely out of balance, where I completely ignored them. And you can't live without the energy running throughout all the chakras. The lower 3 it's sort of like the roots of a tree, like the water comes up from the tree and it gives energy and nutrients to the branch of the tree, the trunk of the tree, and then the branches and the leaves. Well, if you're not feeding the tree, then you're never going to get any fruit. And that's what your 3 lower chakras are, the trunk of your tree, where you're getting the life energy that you need to produce the fruits of the higher level chakras. If you only live in the higher level chakras, then you're not stable. You don't have the foundation of survival, of creativity, of birth, of creativity. Oh, I said creativity, of that sense of power and knowing yourself, truly knowing who you are and what you want, and deciding to make it happen. So, okay, so if your solar plexus chakra is out of balance, you can end up in a lot of ruminating and overthinking. You can go definitely into burnout because you're not operating from your own energy center, from your own sense of power. If it's really out of balance, it can go into selfishness, arrogance, manipulation, righteousness, like always needing to be right. But also it can come up with this, from what I see more so often with women, especially, it really has to do with not being able to express what we want or need, or having the motivation and the self-confidence to push forward in our lives and get putting ourselves first before others, etc. So a lot of that is all based in this solar plexus chakra. Does anyone have any questions about that? So what I want to do is I want to do an EFT tapping script, not script, but an EFT tapping session on the solar plexus chakra. And so let me just talk really quickly about EFT tapping in case you haven't heard of it. So this is, to me, it's this magical technique for working through the limiting beliefs and the emotional charges and the thought patterns that we've developed along the way. We kind of picked up like bad habits along the way in our life, and be a bully belly. Oh, that's interesting, Megan. Megan just said, when I took my yoga teacher training, they talked about how it can also manifest physically in the body as a bully belly. When you mean when the solar plexus is out of alignment?
Yeah, so when it's over functioning and they're kind of being aggressive, it can look as like, almost like a high pregnancy, but you see it a lot in male bodies where it could also look like a beer belly, but it kind of protrudes a little bit under the chest and less kind of lower down, like in the belly. And so my teacher always called it a bully belly. And you can tell when somebody's third chakra is out of balance, when they're kind of, because they're physically like protruding into your space with their bully belly. It's fascinating. And now I always look and see it, and you can usually match up the personality of the person when they, you've had experiences with them, that they also have that kind of protruding belly and that bully belly.
When you say that, I have noticed some bellies, the way they're shaped. And I remember like looking at them, like, how did they get that. And because it doesn't, you're right, it doesn't look like a normal beer belly or something like that. It looks very different.
Yeah, it's
Huh.
kind of more barrely, but it's always right above the third chakra. It's fascinating. And then I've noticed in interactions with those kinds of people, it's like, oh, that matches up, you know, because they kind of are very forceful and kind of asserting their will into other people's space.
Yeah. And it would never ever occur to them that if they just did some chakra work that they would be skinnier. That's fascinating. Thank you for letting me know about that. That's really interesting. Now I'm going to be walking around looking at people's bellies. Okay. So EFT tapping is like I said, a magical technique for it basically disconnects the emotional charge that we have around traumatic experiences that we've had throughout our lives. And these can be big T traumas, like an accident or abuse or an attack or anything like that. Or it can also be a little T traumas. So just those everyday little things that happen all the time throughout our day. They're little paper cut things, but they end up creating these deeper wounds. And so we're going to do it together, but let me just walk through the tapping points. So we always start with a setup statement that is even though, and then you tap on here on the side of the hand below the joint with the little finger, and it can be either hand, it doesn't matter. And that's what we say our setup statement while we're tapping here. And then some practitioners do it different ways, but I was trained to start at the top of the head. So we'll just tap there. Then the top of the eye, which is on the eyebrow next to the nose. And then the side of the eye on the bone on the side of the eye, under the nose, the crease of the chin, just below the collarbone, not on the collarbone, but just below it where there's a little indent, a little soft indent. And then the bottom of the ribs, so you won't really be able to see me doing that, but the bottom of the ribs, under the arm, which is for us where our bra straps go, or just below 3 to 4 inches below the armpit. And then the top of the wrist, just below the joint with the hand. Let me get Megan back in. And the bottom of the wrist. And then we start back over the top of the head. So, and while we are doing this, we are making statements out loud, and we're talking about the problem that we're addressing. And some people get uncomfortable if you've really studied like law of attraction, you might get uncomfortable because we actually say what could be considered negative. But we're telling our amygdala, we're telling our limbic system that this is what we're working on. So we can go into kind of positive affirmations or a reframe later on in the tapping, just to kind of give your brain like a different perspective. But one of the key things around tapping is making sure you tap on the quote negative aspects long enough and enough to really make sure that all the different aspects of them have been addressed. So let me see if there's anything else I want to say. Okay. But the very first step though, is to come up with an intensity level. So on a scale of 0 to 10, with a 0 meaning absolutely no intensity and 10 meaning highly intense. So right now, just think about how you feel about putting yourself first, about having confidence and doing what you want to do without ever thinking about what other people might want. And just think like whatever feelings come up for you when you think of this, and then think of what number would I give this, 0 to 10, with 10 being highly intense. So even, with a lot of the work that I've done on myself, I still probably would be at a 4 or a 5. And so what we'll do is we'll do a round of tapping, and And then we'll check in, like, where's our number now? And then the whole point of tapping is to get down to that 0 where you feel neutral to whatever it is that you're working on. And you can do one set of tapping, and then that kind of covers something. And then you ask yourself, if the number's not 0 yet, so then you ask yourself, so what's going on? Why do I still feel? And then you just tap on that, and you just keep tapping till you get to a 0. And probably today we won't get you to a 0 because I'm talking a lot today. But let's do tapping together. So I'm going to tap, and then I'll wait. So I will tap on the body part that we're tapping on. I'll say something out loud, and I'll have you repeat after me. So I'll wait for you to be able to repeat it. And with one little caveat, if something is more true for you than what I say, go ahead and say what's true for you. So if I say I'm really hurt and you're like, no, I'm really angry, then you would say I'm really angry. So, but let's go ahead and do some tapping. And any questions though before we start? Okay. So like I said, just follow along after me. So on the side of the hand, even though I don't always feel confident, I don't always put myself first, I deeply love and accept myself anyway. Let's go to the top of the head. Sometimes I don't feel confident about myself. Top of the eye. Sometimes I don't feel confident in my beliefs. Side of the eye. To voice my opinion. Under the eye. To ask for what I want. I don't fully know who I am or what I want. On the chin, I don't always acknowledge my needs and desires. On the collarbone, I don't always feel like I have a right to get what I need or desire. Bottom of the ribs, I'm only as good as what I do for others. Under the arm, their wants and needs are more important than my own. Top of the wrist, it feels safer to be in a support role. Bottom of the wrist, basically unseen. Top of the head, it's just too scary to tell the world what I want. Top of the eye, it makes me a target. Side of the eye, I don't like having to make decisions. Under the eye, I sometimes let others make decisions for me. Under the nose, it's easier. On the chin, you know, I'd really rather ignore this block. On the collarbone, because if I started putting myself first, bottom of the ribs, if I wanted to get what I want and need ahead of those, what others want and need, that's kind of a convoluted thing there. But basically, if I want to get what I want and need, it's selfish. Under the arm, it's not right. Top of the wrist, I'm not allowed. Bottom of the wrist, I'm supposed to stay small. Top of the head, I'm supposed to care what others want. Top of the eye, I'm supposed to do what others think I should do. Side of the eye, can't stand in my own power. Under the eye, but this is no way to live. Under the nose, it leaves me out of energy and power without understanding why. I want to feel more confident in myself. The collarbone, more confident in what I believe in. Bottom of the ribs. I want to know and feel that I am deserving. Under the arm, that I can stand in my power. Top of the wrist. I want to release anything holding me back from this. Bottom of the wrist. I want to feel super confident in myself and what I believe in. I want full power in my solar plexus chakra. I am confident in myself in every way. In my beliefs, side of the eye, in my beliefs. Under the eye, and voicing my opinion when I want or need to. Under the nose, in who I am. It feels so good to be strong in my own energy. On the collarbone, I know I can easily help others. Bottom of the ribs. But I help them even more by being strong in my boundaries and staying in my own energy. Under the arm, this power feels so good to have access to. We just lost power. So hopefully you guys can still hear me. So we'll finish up here in just like 30 more seconds. I have a purpose on this planet. Bottom of the ribs, and I am aligned with it.